The Deep Space Research Station hung in the dark like a metal flower. Its lights blinked against the black of space. Inside, Dr. Sarah walked fast down the main hallway. Her boots made sharp sounds on the metal floor. She was late for the morning meeting, and that was never good. The station buzzed with activity. Alien crew members moved through the halls. There were tall blue with their 4 arms. Short gray engineers rolled past on their wheeled feet. The insect-like clicked and chittered as they worked on wall panels. All of them looked nervous today. Sarah pushed through the doors of the main conference room. The smell hit her first, that sharp electric smell that meant danger. 20 different species sat around the large table. All eyes turned to her as she entered. At the head of the table, Commander Ross stood tall. This blue skin was darker than usual. That meant she was worried. "Dr. Ross said." Her voice was like wind through metal. "Please take your seat. We have much to discuss about our guest." Sarah sat down and looked at the large screen on the wall. It showed the containment chamber deep in the station. Inside the clear walls, something moved. It looked like a giant crystal, taller than a human. The crystal was beautiful but wrong. It pulsed with red and orange light. The light moved through it like blood through veins. "This is the specimen we captured 3 days ago," Ross said. "It appears to be young, perhaps not fully grown, but already it has shown abilities that concern us all." Sarah had heard the stories. The first contact team that found the on the edge of known space. All 12 members were found floating in their ship. Their bodies were fine, but their minds were gone. Empty. The doctors said it was like someone had reached into their heads and turned off the lights. The second team was smarter. They went in with full protection. Mental shields, psychic dampeners, special suits that blocked mind attacks. They lasted longer. 5 minutes before they all started screaming. When the rescue team found them, they were alive but broken. They spoke in whispers about crystal fire in their heads. Most of them would never be the same. The third team tried robots, remote control machines. They destroyed them all in seconds, not with weapons or tools, just with its mind. The robots simply stopped working. Their computer brains were wiped clean. "Every approach has failed," said Dr. Vex, a small gray. His large black eyes blinked fast. "The creature responds to any contact with immediate violence. We cannot communicate. We cannot study. We can only watch." Sarah looked at the screen again. The moved slowly in its cell. Its crystal body caught the light and threw rainbows on the walls. But the colors were wrong. Angry reds, violent oranges, colors that spoke of pain and fear. "Has anyone tried a different approach?" Sarah asked. The room went quiet. Ra's 4 arms crossed over her chest. "Doctor, we have tried everything: peaceful signals, mathematical concepts, musical tones, art, poetry. The creature attacks anything that approaches. It is a weapon, nothing more." "But why?" Sarah said. "Why would a species develop such abilities? There has to be a reason, a purpose." "Some species are simply hostile," said Commander, whose insect eyes glittered. "In my history, we learned this truth. Some creatures exist only to destroy." Sarah was about to answer when the doors opened. A new smell entered the room, something wild and alive, something that did not belong on a space station. Every alien in the room tensed. Some reached for weapons. Others stepped back. A human man walked in. He was tall and moved like a soldier. His brown hair was cut short. His green eyes took in everything at once. But it was not the man that made everyone afraid. Beside him walked a wolf. The animal was gray and white with yellow eyes. It was big, almost as tall as Sarah's waist. Its ears were up and alert. Its tail hung low and relaxed. It walked next to the man like it belonged there, like they were parts of the same whole. The room erupted in clicks, whistles, and worried voices in a dozen languages. "Commander," Ross said. Her voice was strained. "The military said they were sending an advisor. They did not mention you would bring a predator." The man smiled. It was a calm smile, but it showed teeth. "This is Ghost. He's my partner. Where I go, he goes." "Absolutely not," said Dr. Vex. His voice was high with fear. "That creature is dangerous. It could kill any of us in seconds. Why would you bring a death beast to a research station?" Looked around the room. His eyes were steady and unafraid. "Because sometimes you need a different perspective. I read your reports on the way here. 3 failed contact attempts, all violent responses. Same result every time. Maybe it's time to try something new." "You cannot be serious," Ra said. "You wish to approach a psychic weapon with another weapon." Knelt down and placed his hand on Ghost's head. The wolf leaned into the touch. Its eyes closed slightly in contentment. Around the room, aliens watched in fascination and horror. "Ghost isn't a weapon," said quietly. "He's family." The word hung in the air. Family. A human concept that most aliens understood but few truly felt. The idea of choosing your pack, of trusting completely, of bonding across the lines of species and logic. Sarah watched the man and the wolf. She saw something in their connection, something the reports had not mentioned, something that might change everything. "What do you propose, Commander?" she asked. Stood up, Ghost stayed close to his side, alert but calm. "I want to meet our crystal friend, just me and Ghost. No weapons, no shields, no threats." The room exploded in protest. Voices rose in a dozen languages. Ra raised all 4 arms for silence. "You will die," she said simply. "The psychic energy will destroy your mind in seconds." Looked at the screen. The pulsed with angry light. But for just a moment, Sarah thought she saw something else in those flashing colors, something that looked almost like loneliness. "Maybe," said, "or maybe it's time someone tried saying hello." The next morning, stood in the observation deck looking down at the containment chamber. Ghost sat beside him, calm and alert. Below them, the moved in slow circles. Its crystal body caught the artificial light and sent colors dancing across the walls. Dr. Sarah joined them at the window. She carried a tablet full of data and looked tired. She had been studying the recordings all night. "The psychic readings are incredible," she said. "The energy output is beyond anything we've seen, but there's something strange about the patterns." Did not take his eyes off the creature below. "What kind of strange?" "The attacks aren't random. They have rhythm, structure, almost like—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Like language." Ghost's ears twitched. The wolf was watching the crystal being with interest, not fear. His tail moved slightly, a small wag that meant he was curious. "He's not afraid of it," said. Sarah looked at the wolf, then back at. "Maybe wolves can't sense psychic energy." "Maybe," said. "Or maybe Ghost sees something we don't." In the chamber below, the stopped moving. Its crystal surface shifted colors. The angry reds faded to orange, then yellow. For a moment the colors were almost peaceful. "It knows we're watching," Sarah said. Nodded. "It's been watching us too, learning. Every time someone approaches, it reacts. But the reactions are getting more complex, more specific. The science team thinks it's just getting better at defending itself." "What do you think?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "I think it's trying to communicate, and we keep responding like enemies." Smiled. It was the first time Sarah had seen him truly smile since he arrived. "Smart lady. That's exactly what I think." Down in the chamber, the had moved to the wall closest to them. Its surface pulsed with soft blue light. The pattern was slow and steady, like breathing. "Yesterday I watched the security footage from all 3 contact attempts," said. "Same pattern every time. Teams approach with weapons ready, shields up, projecting authority and power. The responds with violence." "Because it's defending itself," Sarah said. "Right, but defending against what? What does it think we are?" Ghost stood up and pressed his nose against the window. His breath fogged the glass. Below, the colors shifted to deep purple. The purple moved through its crystal body in waves. "I've been studying wolves for 20 years, said. Pack behavior, territory, communication. When a wolf feels threatened, it has choices: run, hide, or fight. But when a wolf feels cornered with no escape, it does something else. What? It tries to communicate, to show it's not a threat, to find a way to live. Sarah looked at him carefully. You think thee is cornered. I think it's terrified, alone, trying to talk to creatures it doesn't understand, and every time it tries, we respond with more force. The observation deck doors opened. Commander Ra entered with Dr. Vex and several other team members. Their faces were serious. Commander, Ra said, we need to discuss your request to approach the specimen. Turned from the window. Ghost moved to his side, a gray shadow that watched everyone with calm yellow eyes. The council has reviewed your proposal, Dr. Vex said. His gray skin was pale with worry. It is beyond dangerous. It is insane. The creature has killed or damaged every mind that approached it, said Doctor, a tall plant-like. Her leafy appendages rustled with distress. You would walk into certain death. Maybe, said, but I don't think so. Based on what evidence? Rod demanded. Looked back at the window. There was still there, still pulsing with purple light. Based on him. He pointed at Ghost. The wolf was sitting quietly, completely relaxed despite being surrounded by alien species that could hurt him. His ears were up, his breathing was steady. He showed no signs of fear or aggression. Ghost has been exposed to the psychic emanations for 2 days now, said. The energy bleeds through the containment field. Not much, but some. If this creature was purely hostile, purely dangerous, Ghost would know. He would react. Perhaps wolves are immune to psychic attack, suggested Dr. Vex. Maybe, or maybe Ghost understands something we don't. Dogs and wolves have been reading human emotions for thousands of years. They know fear, anger, sadness, happiness. They can sense these things in ways we can't explain. Sarah looked at Ghost with new interest. You think he can sense this emotional state? I think Ghost knows the difference between a predator and someone who's scared. Ra's 4 arms crossed over her chest. Even if you are correct, the risk is too great. If you die, the diplomatic consequences alone. I'm not going to die, said quietly. You cannot know that. Knelt down and placed both hands on Ghost's head. The wolf leaned into the touch, eyes closing in contentment. Around the room, the aliens watched this display of trust with fascination. In the wild, said, wolves live in packs, family groups. They depend on each other completely, trust without question. They share food, share warmth, share protection. They know each other's hearts. He stood up, keeping one hand on Ghost's head. Humans learned to do the same thing, not just with each other but with wolves. We built something new, a bond across species. We chose to trust and they chose to trust back. This is touching, Doctor said, her leaves rustling with impatience. But how does this help with the... Because, said, maybe trust is universal. Maybe the ability to bond, to connect, to choose cooperation over conflict. Maybe that's something all intelligent species can understand. Down in the chamber, the head moved again. It stood in the center now, perfectly still. Its surface showed patterns of blue and purple, flowing like water. Look at it, Sarah said softly. Really look. When was the last time it showed aggressive colors? The room went quiet. Everyone stared at the screens showing the creature below. For the past 10 minutes there had been no red, no orange, no angry flashing, just calm blues and soft purples. It's listening to us, said, learning our voices, our patterns, trying to understand. Impossible, Dr. Vex whispered. Is it? Asked. We've been treating it like a weapon, like a threat. But what if we're wrong? What if it's just someone far from home trying to figure out how to talk to us? Ghost stood up and walked to the window. He placed his paws against the glass and looked down at the... His tail wagged once, slow and gentle. In the chamber below, the crystal being moved closer to the window. Its surface shimmered with colors that looked almost curious. Ghost wants to meet him, said. That creature could destroy both your minds in seconds, Ra warned. Smiled the same calm smile that showed teeth. Only if it thinks we're enemies, but we're not here to fight, we're here to make friends. He looked around the room at all the worried faces. I'm going in tomorrow, with Ghost. No weapons, no shields, no threats, just two friends saying hello. The room erupted in protests, but was already walking toward the door. Ghost trotted beside him, tail wagging gently. Sometimes, said over his shoulder, the best way to meet someone new is to show them your heart first. The containment chamber door stood before like the mouth of a metal cave. Red warning lights flashed around the entrance. Signs in 12 languages warned of psychic danger. Behind him, half the station's crew watched through the observation windows. Wore no armor, no psychic shields hummed around his head, no weapons hung from his belt, just simple clothes and calm breathing. Ghost stood beside him, gray fur clean and brushed, yellow eyes alert but unafraid. Final systems check, came Doctor's voice through the speakers. All monitoring equipment is active. Emergency teams are standing by. Pressed his hand against the door controls. The metal was cold under his fingers. We're ready. Commander, came Ra's voice, tight with worry. You can still change your mind. No one will think less of you. Looked up at the observation windows. Dozens of faces stared back at him, alien eyes wide with fear and fascination. Doctor had her hands pressed against the glass. Even the usually calm Ra was leaning forward, all four arms tense. See you in a few minutes, said. The door opened with a soft hiss. The chamber was larger than it looked from above. White walls curved up to a high ceiling. The air tasted of electricity and something else, something alive and sharp, like the moment before lightning strikes. In the center of the room stood the. It was beautiful and terrible, taller than by half, made of living crystal that caught every light and threw it back in rainbows. Its surface was smooth in some places, faceted in others, like a jewel carved by someone who understood light itself. But now the light was wrong. As and Ghost entered, the crystal flared bright red. Ghost's ears went back, not in fear but in alertness. The wolf could sense the psychic energy building like a wave about to break. The surface blazed brighter. Red became orange, became blinding white. The psychic wave hit like a physical blow. It crashed into his mind, seeking to tear apart his thoughts, to break his spirit, to drive him mad. In the observation deck, Ra screamed a warning. Doctor pressed her hands to her mouth. Every alien voice raised in alarm. The monitors showed psychic energy levels that should have killed any thinking creature instantly. But did not fall. The wave of mental force washed over him and found something unexpected. Not resistance would have been broken. Not shields would have been shattered. Instead, it found acceptance. Openness, a mind that did not fight the touch but simply absorbed it. Stumbled but stayed standing. The psychic energy flowed through him like water through a net. His thoughts scattered for a moment, then came back together. Different but still his own. Incredible, Dr. Vex whispered from the observation deck. The human is still conscious. The pulsed brighter, confused by the lack of collapse. It sent another wave, stronger this time. Gritted his teeth but held steady. Ghost whined softly and pressed against his leg, offering comfort. Look at the wolf, Sarah said suddenly. Look at Ghost. Everyone stared at the gray animal. Ghost was calm, alert but not afraid. He could feel the psychic storm raging around them, but somehow it did not touch him. His simple animal mind was like a rock in the waves, unmovable, unbreakable. Reached down and placed his hand on Ghost's head. The wolf leaned into the touch, just as he had done 100 times before, 1,000 times. A simple gesture of trust and love between two beings who had chosen to be family. The stopped its attack. The crystal being stood perfectly still, its surface shifting through a rainbow of colors. The psychic energy still flowed around the chamber, but now it felt different. Not attacking, questioning. Took a step forward. Ghost walked beside him, tail low but relaxed. The colors shifted to deep purple shot through with silver. The pattern moved like thoughts made visible. Another step, the purple deepened to blue, the silver became gold, still no attack came. "What is it doing?" someone whispered in the observation deck. Knew that was reading them, not their thoughts, their hearts. The psychic energy was not trying to destroy now, but to understand. It touched its mind gently, carefully, like fingers learning Braille. And through that touch, the crystal being felt something it had never encountered before. Trust. Pure, simple trust between two different species. The bond between human and wolf was like nothing in its experience. Two predators who chose cooperation over conflict. Two hunters who shared instead of fought. Two minds that had become something greater together. The scent another pulse, but this one was different, softer. It washed over like warm water, carrying with it emotions he could barely understand. Loneliness, confusion, fear, and underneath it all, desperate hope. Knelt down beside Ghost. The wolf sat calmly, completely unworried despite the alien energy swirling around them. His breathing was steady. His heartbeat was strong. He trusted his human completely, and that trust was unshakable. The moved closer. Its crystal form caught the light and sent cascades of blue and gold across the walls. The psychic emanations grew stronger, but now they felt like questions instead of weapons. Through the touch of alien mind to human heart, emotions flowed both ways. Felt the creature's desperate isolation, its fear of the strange beings who approached with weapons and shields, its confusion at being caged and studied like a dangerous animal. And the felt calm certainty, his lack of fear, his genuine curiosity about this strange crystal being. And most importantly, it felt his love for the wolf beside him, a love without conditions, without limits, without doubt. "Warning," Dr. Vex's voice crackled through the speakers. "Massive psychic surge detected. The creature is preparing another attack." Through the observation windows, Ra saw the surface blaze with light. Energy readings spiked beyond safe levels. Every monitor screamed warnings of imminent psychic assault. She expected to see collapse. She expected his mind to shatter like the others. Instead, she watched something impossible. Turned toward the observation deck. Even with psychic fire raging around him, even with energy levels that should have reduced his brain to ash, he smiled. It was a calm smile, peaceful and unafraid. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady. "He trusts me." Ra recoiled in terror. The words made no sense. Trust. How could there be trust in that chamber of death? How could the human speak of trust while psychic forces raged around him? But even as she watched, the truth became clear. There was not attacking anymore. The energy pouring from its crystal form was not violent. It was curious, wondering, reaching out to touch the strange bond between human and wolf, trying to understand what trust meant. Ghost wagged his tail once, slow and gentle. The simple gesture of a happy dog said more than any words could. In that wag was everything they needed to know about the relationship between the two strangers in its prison. The crystal being's surface shimmered through colors that had no names, wonder, recognition, and for the first time since its capture, something that might have been hope. Stood up slowly. Ghost rose with him, the perfect partner. Together, they took another step toward the beautiful, terrible, lonely creature that had been feared by half the galaxy. "Hello," said quietly. "My name is This is Ghost. We're very pleased to meet you." The surface rippled with soft gold light. In the observation deck, every monitor went quiet. The psychic storm had become something else entirely. It had become conversation. The chamber was quiet now. Sat cross-legged on the floor with Ghost beside him. The wolf's tail thumped softly against the metal surface. 3 feet away, the had settled into a sitting position of its own, if sitting was the right word for how a crystal being folded its form into something lower and less threatening. The alien's surface glowed with gentle colors, blue like deep water, gold like sunlight. Occasionally, silver threads would run through the crystal like veins of light. Each color carried meaning, was beginning to understand. Emotion made visible. In the observation deck above, Dr. Sarah watched everything with amazement. The monitors showed stable psychic readings, energy flowing between human and alien, but gentle now. Conversational, like two people getting to know each other. "How is this possible?" Dr. Vex whispered. His gray skin was pale with shock. The creature should have destroyed his mind by now. Ra stood at the main window, all four arms pressed against the glass. "I have never seen anything like this. The human shows no signs of psychic damage, no trauma. He appears to be communicating." Below them extended his hand slowly toward not touching, just offering. The crystal being's surface shimmered, and a tentacle of living light reached out to hover near his fingers. When it made contact, smiled. "It's not hostile," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the speakers. "It never was hostile, it was scared." Sarah activated her recording equipment and leaned toward the microphone. "Can you explain what you're experiencing?" Was quiet for a moment. His eyes were distant, as if listening to something only he could hear. "It's like, remember being a child and having someone explain something you never understood before. It's that moment when everything suddenly makes sense." The colors shifted to warm amber. The light tentacle that touched his hand pulsed gently. "The previous contact teams," continued. "They approached with their minds closed, protected, shielded to them that felt safe. But Tua—" "What about Tua?" Sarah asked. "Imagine you're trying to talk to someone but they're wearing armor and holding weapons. Every time you try to communicate, they raise their shields higher. They get more defensive. How would that make you feel?" Ghost yawned and stretched out more comfortably beside. The wolf was completely relaxed now. His breathing was slow and deep, the way dogs breathe when they feel perfectly safe. "They are empathic," said. "Deeply empathic. They don't just sense emotions, they need them. They feed on connection the way plants feed on sunlight. When someone approaches them with fear and aggression, it hurts them, makes them desperate." Dr. Vex's voice came through the speakers, high and tight. "Are you saying the creature was in pain during our attempts at contact?" "I'm saying it was starving," replied. "Starving for understanding, for connection, for proof that it wasn't alone in the universe." The surface rippled with darker blues. Sadness realized, memory of loneliness and fear. "But why didn't it attack Ghost?" Sarah asked. "Why was the wolf safe?" Looked down at his companion. Ghost's yellow eyes were half closed in contentment. One of his ears twitched at the sound of his name, but he didn't lift his head from his paws. "Because Ghost doesn't know how to lie," said. "Animals can't fake emotions the way people can. When Ghost looks at there's no fear, no aggression, no hidden agenda, just curiosity and acceptance." He scratched behind Ghost's ears. The wolf made a small sound of pleasure and leaned into the touch. "For 20,000 years, wolves chose to trust humans. Not because they had to, not because we forced them. They chose it. They looked at these strange, dangerous primates and decided we could be family. That choice changed both our species forever." The moved closer. Its crystal form caught the chamber lights and threw rainbows across the walls. The light tentacle that touched grew brighter, more solid. "The understand pack bonds," said. "They have them too, not like wolves but similar. They form connections that last lifetimes. They share thoughts, emotions, experiences. When they're alone, they suffer." Sarah felt pieces clicking together in her mind. "The specimen we captured, it's alone, cut off from its pack." "Completely alone," confirmed. "Imagine if you were kidnapped by aliens and locked in a cage. Every time they tried to talk to you, they wore armor and pointed weapons. How long before you started fighting back?" The crystal being's colors shifted to warm gold mixed with silver. Through the psychic link, could feel its gratitude. Finally, someone understood. "But how are you communicating without protection?" Ra asked. Her voice carried wonder and disbelief in equal measure. Looked up at the observation deck. His eyes found each face watching him. "Because I'm not protecting myself from it, I'm sharing myself with it. There's a difference." He placed his hand fully against the slight tentacle. The alien's surface blazed with colors that had no names. Joy realized. Pure, simple joy at making contact with another thinking being. "When Ghost and I walked in here, we didn't come as predators or prisoners or scientists. We came as ourselves. Open, honest, willing to trust first and ask questions later." Ghost lifted his head and looked at his tail wagged once, gentle and friendly. The crystal being's colors brightened in response. "The psychic attacks," continued. "They weren't attacks at all. They were attempts at communication, like shouting when someone doesn't understand your language. The louder you shout, the more they back away, so you shout louder still." Doctor's leafy voice rustled through the speakers. "You are suggesting that all our protocols were wrong." "I'm suggesting that some species can't be approached like enemies if you want to make friends." They extended another light tentacle toward Ghost. The wolf sniffed it curiously, then licked it as if it were a normal hand. The alien's surface exploded in cheerful yellow light. "What is it thinking now?" Sarah asked. Smiled. The psychic connection was growing stronger, more clear. Emotions and images flowed between them like a gentle river. "It's thinking that Ghost tastes like sunlight and good intentions," he said. "And it's wondering if all humans know how to make friends with dangerous things." "Do they?" Ra asked quietly. Looked around the chamber, at the beautiful crystal being that had been feared across the galaxy. At Ghost, who had chosen to trust a human thousands of years ago when his ancestors first came to the fires. At the worried faces watching from above. "Humans have been making friends with dangerous things since we learned to think," he said. "Wolves, horses, fire, steel, the deep ocean, the empty sky. We look at things that could kill us and ask, but what if we work together instead?" The surface showed patterns of blue and gold, flowing like water and light combined. Through the psychic link, felt its amazement at the concept. A species that chose cooperation over conquest, partnership over domination. "It wants to know," said softly, "if its pack can come home now." In the observation deck, silence fell like snow. Every being there understood what that meant. They weren't just one lost creature. They were a species, a civilization, a people who had been waiting to see if the galaxy contained anyone worth trusting. "Tell it," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "Tell it we're very sorry for the misunderstanding. And yes, they can come home." The chamber filled with light as the sang its joy in colors that painted the walls like dawn breaking over an alien world. Ghost's tail wagged harder, because he understood perfectly that sometimes the best things in life come from saying hello to strangers. 6 months later, the Deep Space Research Station looked completely different. Where once there had been cold metal corridors, now there were gardens. Living walls of crystal grew alongside normal plants, catching light and throwing rainbows down the hallways. The air itself seemed brighter, warmer, filled with something that felt like contentment. Walked through the main corridor with Ghost at his side, just as they had on that first day. But now they were not alone. Beside them moved a figure of living crystal, tall and graceful, its surface showing patterns of gold and blue. This was Harmony, the name they had chosen for itself after learning human words. Other beings moved through the corridors too. Tall walked alongside Small Gray. Blue-skinned worked with crystal beings on projects that mixed technology and art. The insect-like had discovered that light singing made their own music more beautiful, and now concerts echoed through the station every evening. The integration program is exceeding all expectations. Dr. Sarah said as she joined them in the main conference room. She looked happier than had ever seen her. 70% of the crew have volunteered for the enhanced therapy sessions. Sat down at the table with Ghost lying beside his chair. Harmony took a position near the window where the starlight could feed its crystal structure. The alien surface showed peaceful purples and greens, colors of satisfaction and growth. "Any problems?" asked. "A few," Sarah admitted. "Some species still can't handle direct contact. The minds are too rigid. The merchants are too focused on profit to form genuine bonds, but most are adapting better than we hoped." Through the window, could see other ships docked at the station. Sleek vessels that looked like living sculpture. Transport ships bringing diplomats from across the galaxy. Research vessels filled with scientists eager to study this new form of communication. "What about the therapy results?" he asked. Sarah's smile grew wider. "Incredible. The PTSD treatment program has a 95% success rate. They can literally heal traumatic memories by sharing the emotional load. They take the pain and transform it into something bearable." Ghost lifted his head and looked at Harmony. The crystal being extended a light tentacle to stroke the wolf's fur. Ghost's tail wagged lazily in response. After 6 months, they were old friends. "The addiction recovery program is even better," Sarah continued. "The empathic connection helps patients understand the root emotions behind their addictive behaviors. They're not just treating symptoms anymore, they're healing the underlying wounds." Nodded, he had seen the changes firsthand. Broken minds becoming whole, shattered hearts learning to trust again. They didn't just cure, they connected. They showed other beings what healthy emotional bonds felt like. "Commander," came a familiar voice. Ra entered the room, but she looked different now. Her blue skin was brighter, healthier. Her movements were more relaxed. "The council meeting is about to begin." The main screen activated, showing representatives from dozens of worlds. Some appeared in person, others through holographic projection. All of them looked eager to hear the latest reports. "The integration project has been approved for expansion," announced Counselor. The insect being's voice buzzed with excitement. 12 more stations are requesting diplomatic specialists." "What about the military applications?" asked General, a large reptilian from the Outer Rim. "The enhanced unit coordination abilities could revolutionize combat effectiveness." Felt Harmony's colors shift to darker blues. Concern, worry. The crystal being had learned enough about other species to know that not all cooperation was peaceful. "They have made their position clear," said. "They will not participate in violent conflicts. Their abilities can be used for healing, communication, and mutual understanding, not for war." "But surely defensive applications," the general began. "No," the voice came from Harmony itself, transmitted through speakers that converted light patterns into sound. "We have seen what your species call defense. We will not help anyone hurt others, no matter the reason given." The room fell quiet. Even after 6 months, hearing a speak directly still amazed most beings. Their voices were like music made of light, beautiful and strange. "The position is understandable," said Doctor. "They're an empathic species. They feel the pain of anyone who suffers. Using their abilities to cause harm would be like forcing them to torture themselves." "Then what can they offer us?" asked Counselor, a tall plant-like being from the core worlds. Looked at Harmony, who pulsed with gentle gold light. "Show them." The crystal being moved to the center of the room and extended dozens of light tentacles. Each one touched a different person: human, alien, synthetic intelligence, energy being. For a moment, everyone in the room was connected. Through that connection flowed something unprecedented. Understanding, not just of words or concepts, but of hearts and minds. Each being felt what the others felt, saw through their eyes, understood their fears, hopes, and dreams as if they were their own. The connection lasted only seconds, but when it ended, the silence was profound. That, said quietly, is what they can offer, true understanding between species, an end to the misunderstandings that cause wars, the ability to solve problems together instead of fighting over them. Remarkable, whispered Counselor. I felt what it was like to be human, to have such short lives but such intense emotions. And I felt what it was like to think with a hive mind, said Doctor, to never be alone, but also to carry the weight of everyone's thoughts. Around the room, beings looked at each other with new eyes. Enemies became friends. Strangers became family. The artificial barriers of species and culture faded in the light of genuine empathy. This is why the program works, explained. They don't just heal individuals. They heal the spaces between individuals. They build bridges where none existed before. Ghost yawned and stretched, completely unbothered by the historic moment happening around him. To a wolf, emotional connections were just part of life. It was the other species who made everything complicated. What are your recommendations for expansion? Asked the council leader, an ancient energy being whose voice sounded like distant stars. Looked around the room at faces that had become familiar over the months, scientists who had learned to trust, diplomats who had discovered empathy, soldiers who had found peace. Start small, he said. Find volunteers from each species who can handle the deep emotional connections. Train them not just in the technical aspects, but in the art of opening their hearts to strangers. It's not for everyone, Doctor added. Some minds are too rigid, too closed, but those who can adapt, they become something new, something better. Harmony pulsed with warm colors. We do not change beings, they said. We only help them remember what they forgot. That connection is survival. That trust is strength. That together is better than alone. The meeting continued for hours, planning the expansion of what historians would later call the Great Connection. New protocols were established. Training programs were designed. Resources were allocated to spread the network of understanding across the galaxy. As the sun set through the station's windows, walked through the gardens with Ghost and Harmony. Other beings worked and played around them, different species, sharing the same space in peace. Children of various races played together, their laughter mixing with the musical light songs of young. Do you think it will work? Sarah asked as she joined them. This new paradigm we're building. Watched a human child teaching a young how to throw a ball while it provided gentle light for them to see by. Ghost had found a comfortable spot in a patch of crystal grass that grew warm in the artificial sunlight. It's already working, he said. Look around. 6 months ago, half these species barely spoke to each other. Now they're building gardens together. But what about the holdouts, the species that refuse to participate, the ones who still see cooperation as weakness? Harmony's surface showed patterns of silver and blue patience mixed with hope. Change comes slowly, the alien said, like water wearing away stone. We do not need everyone to trust at once. We only need enough to start. A small group of children ran past Human, and one young whose surface sparkled with excited rainbow patterns. They were playing a game that seemed to involve a lot of running and giggling. Ghost's ears perked up at the sound and his tail wagged. The children adapt fastest, Sarah observed. They don't have old prejudices to overcome. Children and dogs, agreed. They both know how to make friends without overthinking it. As the stars came out, the station's lights dimmed to a comfortable glow. But the crystal structures in the gardens continued to shine, fed by the contentment and peace of the beings around them. They had learned that positive emotions tasted just as good as desperate ones, but lasted much longer. What's next for you? Sarah asked. He looked down at Ghost, who had claimed a spot on a crystal bench that radiated gentle warmth. The wolf was completely content, surrounded by friends both familiar and strange. His yellow eyes reflected the rainbow lights of the garden, and his breathing was deep and peaceful. Same thing we've always done, said. Find the next stranger who needs a friend, the next dangerous thing that might turn out to be wonderful, the next wall that needs a bridge built across it. Harmony moved closer, its light tentacles creating gentle patterns in the air. We have learned much from humans, the crystal being said. How to trust quickly, how to forgive easily, how to see potential friends in former enemies. And we've learned from you, replied. How to share pain so it becomes bearable, how to build connections that last lifetimes, how to turn understanding into healing. Above them, the stars shone through the transparent walls of the garden. Each point of light represented a world, a species, a potential friend waiting to be discovered. The galaxy had become smaller and larger at the same time, smaller because the distances between hearts had shrunk, larger because there were so many more hearts to discover. Ghost's tail thumped against the crystal bench, the sound of a happy dog in a garden full of friends. Around them, the lights of the station pulsed with the rhythm of thousands of beings learning to trust each other. The future stretched ahead like an open road, bright with possibility. And in that garden of light and connection, surrounded by friends who had once been strangers, smiled the same calm smile he had worn in the containment chamber 6 months ago. The smile of someone who knew that the most dangerous things in the universe often made the best friends. You just had to be brave enough to offer your hand first.